In Kentucky sports, you're in the Red Zone right here on Revolution 91.7.
Welcome back to the Red Zone here on Revolution 91.7 from Mass Media and Technology Hall, 3rd floor, Fletcher Keel, Billy Rutledge, Jimmy Stratman.
High atop Mass Media.
We're not that high. At WKU Red Zone is the Twitter handle. Questions, comments, anything you want to say to us here, send a tweet our way, and who knows, it might get read on air. We've been talking about the WKU Swimming and Dive team. Yesterday, news broke that the program was placed on 5 years probation, suspended rather was the official word, and we've been talking about kind of what went into it, what happened, and we'll put that segment online so you can go back and listen to it. But now let's play a couple of possibilities here. So 5 years is the limit, but if you look at the Twitter feeds of some WKU writers, especially that of Chad Bishop, and poor Mr. Chad Bishop,
getting a lot of hate.
He is the sounding board for WKU fans when something's going wrong, be it the WKU football team is blowing a fourth quarter lead, basketball is in the middle of a slide, or something like yesterday. People think he has control over this. He think he's the Hilltopper God. So if you
he's got verified on Twitter, so he has to be able to.
If you take your anger out on Chad Bishop, he is a good man. He has nothing to do with WKU. He just covers them. I feel bad for him sometimes, but a lot of people were saying this is just a way that WKU was looking to cut the program. And the first thing, I was with Josh Holland, regular host here on the Red Zone, when the news broke, and the first thing I said to him, I looked over and I said, you know what my biggest fear about this whole case is that 5 years is going to turn into 6 years, which is going to turn into 7 years, which is eventually going to turn into no more swim and dive on WKU's campus. And a lot of people, to Chad and some to Zach Greenwell and other WKU writers as well, were repeating that same sentiment, that they think that this was a way for WKU to get rid of that sport. But with the success that it had, I can't fully believe that.
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on both ways. There's one way where it says the success and the history is something that's not just easily taken away like that. It's not something that you can just take away and just because of money and funding and cutbacks. But the other way is that Western Kentucky is losing money in the athletics department. According to a Herald article last year, I'm a part of the staff on the Herald, so I'm kind of in the know of all the stories there.
Absolutely.
And they were talking about the football program not making money going to the Bahamas Bowl. And that's really serious because that's kind of the FBS Bowl, and it's a lot of recognition for WKU, but also at the same time it's all about making money. And if you can't put people in the stands, which is a problem for the football team already.
Problem for just about everyone.
Exactly. And so it's a problem with all these athletics, and if the football team's not making money, which is arguably the most popular sport here, then how is the swimming and diving team making money as well? I know they had a lot of success and there's a lot of history to it, but it does come down to a business. And when it comes down to the line here 5 years now where it's saying, hey, are we going to start over? Already so much negative media into WKU swimming, it's going to be a lot harder to start it back up than it was to maybe start it up a different way.
I think I read somewhere that WKU swimming took up about 14% of the athletic budget. So in eliminating that, you're gaining all that funding, which they can funnel back into football or basketball, which are the two main sports here on campus, the two that they were going to want to build up and make as good as possible. And so I don't know. It could be, 5 years could turn into 6 years. It could be a strategic move placed by Gary Ransdell and Todd Stewart, but I'm just not sure. It has had a lot of success, but if you walk in to the natatorium during a swim meet, you look up at the stands, other than like parents and siblings, you don't see a whole lot.
It's all about the stands.
And I believe it might have changed with the move to Conference USA, but back in the Sun Belt days, there was only one home meet a year for the Hilltoppers, much like at track and field where they had the Hilltopper relays, a similar situation with the swim and dive team. And going back to what you're saying, Billy, I understand that the Hilltoppers operate in the red in terms of athletics. But the thing about that is just about every school in the nation does so. I remember doing a paper my freshman year in around 2011, 2012, and saw a USA Today article saying there are only 6 or 7 teams in the entire country that make money off of athletics. And so the Hilltoppers aren't the only team struggling financially.
One thing that kind of makes a huge impact on this is Western Kentucky isn't the biggest school. They're known as a mid-major school. So it's not like they can afford, I don't want to say afford, it's kind of using that word for lack of a better word, but swimming isn't the biggest priority, and I hate saying that. I think all athletes that talented like that and with such a history, I feel like people should be going to see the swimming dive team. I think they were really good, and you can see it by 3 championships the last 4 years for the men's team.
I think they came in second in that year that they didn't win.
Exactly, and so that 14% is a lot bigger than you think. I know it's only 14%, but that can be used in many of the ways here to popular sports here at Western.
I think there are a couple different ways that this could go that would say that it'll kind of determine whether or not swimming is brought back. If WKU, as an athletics department and whatever goes into creating an athletic budget, just doesn't use that 14%, just says, hey, we're not going to use this 14% for 5 years because if we do, we'll overestimate for when swimming and diving does come back. And also, with WKU being a mid-major, being a stepping stone, we've used a lot on the show when talking about coaches moving and players moving. How long is Todd Stewart going to be here? How many years of that 5-year suspension will he be here? And if he does go to another university or maybe back to the professional ranks where he was for some time before being at WKU, will the new athletic director come in and know the situation, want to bring it back? And who knows, maybe even Gary Ransdell might have a hand in that, saying, yeah, I was here, and maybe we shouldn't revisit that for another couple years or so.
It could open the door for another couple sports to come back onto the hill. One of the main ones that I've heard just around that people have been clamoring for the past couple of years is men's soccer, bringing that back. They've also cut the men's tennis team over the past, I think that was last year that they cut it.
Last spring semester.
So it could draw in another sport and different players to the hill. But
reasonably, how successful do you think that men's soccer would be in the first few years? Do you think that WKU would show out to men's soccer? I know soccer is a very popular sport, and when there's good soccer teams, I know that there's student support. But do you really think that if a men's soccer team was created in the next 5 years?
I think you would be surprised at the number of people who, if you ask, would you want a men's soccer team on campus, that would say yes. Especially coming off of a year, or especially coming off a summer like this summer with the World Cup. It's one of those things where you have the World Cup, everyone's all soccer for a couple months, and then they kind of drift away until the next World Cup. It's almost surprising people that I hear say, yeah, that'd be cool if WKU got men's soccer, and I look at them and I didn't even know you were into soccer.
Right, but can they get those people to the games? Western has a hard enough time getting them to the football games, and there's huge tailgates for that. Hard enough time for the basketball games, and they're consistently successful every year. You're talking about another third sport, men's soccer, where you need that big attendance to be able to make money in soccer because they're going to be traveling a lot. They're going to be playing a difficult schedule and a very expensive schedule with the tournaments they are going to be in too. So you think you add something like a men's soccer, they're not successful the first 3 years, you lose money, the fan support's not there, it's a disaster. I know where it comes from, where a lot of people want men's soccer, but realistically, Western Kentucky Athletics adding a men's soccer program isn't the most maybe smart thing to do, especially coming off these hazing allegations for the swim team.
I think coming off, as Fletcher was saying, that World Cup fever, I think that they could draw a bigger crowd than they would, say, the swim team.
They could the first year after the World Cup, maybe after the first few months.
I think
maybe that year.
I think they spend that first year and they establish themselves. I think that they could draw a bigger crowd and they might be able to be a bigger sport than, say, swimming. They could draw more people than swimming did.
A lot more expensive than swimming, too.
Of course, men's soccer was here on the Hill before, got cut as a part of Title IX regulations to move football up to the FBS level, and now Hilltoppers only have a women's team, which is actually pretty good. Coach Nidell does a good job over with the Lady Topper soccer squad. So we talked about, is swimming coming back? Is the possibility of having the program be on the shelf for 5 years extended? And of course, there's always that possibility. Hope it doesn't happen. But another big conversation I've seen, again, with the angry tweets to Chad Bishop, would this have happened with a football, with a basketball, with a money revenue sport here on campus? And it's hard to think about, because you don't want to think that this could happen to any sport, but you also think, wow, if this had happened with the football team, that'd be really hard for WKU to do the same thing, I think.
I would hate to think that Western Kentucky would turn a blind eye to something like sexual harassment and hazing just because that money is being funneled in. And I know that's a very big aspect of many big schools. Many boosters pay a lot of recruits and people money, very off the table and stuff like that. A lot of people love their school, but for somebody to turn a blind eye to such a serious offense like this is something I can't imagine. And so I want to think that Western Kentucky would do the same and kind of hold their integrity, but you just can't say that 100%.
I don't think hazing in and of itself, it goes back to what we talked about last block. I think the sexual harassment allegations was the straw that broke the camel's back, as Jimmy said, and I think that would be the same thing across the board here.
I'm not sold on the idea that they would blame the entire football team like they did with the swim team. If it was the football team, one of the biggest moneymakers, as Billy was talking about, I think they would go further in and maybe try to single out or find those 3 or 4 people who are bringing the whole organization down.
Then we'll lower. What if it was a Ray Harbor basketball team, or this would almost never happen because of the quality of background and kids that Travis Hudson brings in, but a team of 16 members like a volleyball team.
Basketball, I think they would do the same thing and try to funnel down, because football and basketball are the two biggest sports, the two biggest money makers, the two biggest draws for Western Kentucky athletics. I would think they would try to funnel it down. Volleyball,
or a sport like that where it's not 55 or 60, 75, 80 guys like a football team is, where it's closer to 12, 15.
It just depends
20.
about the percentage of amount of people that are doing it. I kind of see the argument you're coming from, but kind of look at some of the football programs that have had sexual harassment problems in the past. I know the Alabama.
Choose a big major college.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere in their history.
I don't know why I'm talking about Alabama football again, but they just had a player that was, just charged with. I'm not sure if it was charged or not. Right, exactly. And this happens a lot. And you see in many scenarios they're just kicked off the team. It's kind of scruffed under the rug after a few months of media coverage, and it's kind of put through. And
but I think the luxury that they have, not that you ever have a luxury in a situation like that, but they don't have a precedent already set. They don't have a history where, we've put a team on a shelf for however many years because of something, but with here, we're just going to let it slide because we're making money off of it.
I don't know if it's let it slide, but...
Not let it slide, but let the team off the hook.
Right.
I guess this whole what if it happened with a money revenue sport goes back to the conversation of why why suspend the entire team? Why not just discipline the however many small amount of the team that it was?
That goes back to the words that Gary Ransdell and Todd Stewart used as culture. And that's what it was, and that was the defining moment. Because I agree with Bill Powell in saying that a lot of those kids didn't deserve to be punished. I'm sure there were a lot of kids that didn't partake in the sexual harassment and some of the things like that, but it was the culture that was able to sway them.
It was the fact that it seems like it's gone on for a very long time, whereas if you look at some of the bigger schools like the Alabama player, it was more of a recent thing and more of like a one-time event, or so they portrayed it as. And if I'm remembering that story correctly, that Alabama player hadn't even played a game
for Nick
Saban yet. He was a recruit who was in his first semester in Tuscaloosa, so he had never really put on the Crimson Tide uniform before that happened.
Which would make it a whole lot easier to just suspend him or kick him off the team and shove it underneath the rug, as you said earlier.
And there's the difference between one player that hasn't played a game doing something like that, and then the entire team partaking in events that affect everyone, and that's where the difference lies.
So WKU Swim and Dive, suspended for 5 years. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully we'll see a WKU Swim and Dive team in the near future, and hopefully this doesn't put a cloud over a program that has had so much success while at WKU, sending a gold medalist to the Olympics last time out in London, and you just have to feel for the kids. It's almost kind of like the UAB situation in terms of just having the program taken out kind of from underneath them. They love what they do. A lot of them in that case went to UAB. A lot of WKU swimmers and divers come in. Colin Craig came in from California. And WKU Swim and Dive is well known in the swim and dive community, and they come in from all over the place here for that purpose, now taken away.
They were a very good program. It was actually my first beat when I'm working at the WKU Herald. That's where I started off doing swimming, interviewing Coach Bruce and some of the players, and I got to really know that team, and it's just really a shame now that so much reach by this program is now taken away by the mistakes of few.
I think you just got to echo Claire Donahue's tweet that you got to feel sorry for the 50, 60 kids that are being blamed that haven't actually partaken in this kind of behavior. And it's a family, and you just got to they just have to get through it.
Claire Donahue said it, love my family. A lot of WKU swimmers and divers saying it as well, that they will stick with their family throughout all of this. We will take our second break, come back, talk some sports that are in season, baseball, and there's a game happening Saturday, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that. You're listening to the Red Zone right here on Revolution 91.7.